missile cruisers that are carrying nukes, building up all over the Gulf and all over the Mediterranean. You've got the Pakistanis blocking the U.S. route into Afghanistan, the main supply route. The Russians blocking the other route. The Pakistanis saying, get out of these military bases. The U.S. is starting to comply. The Russians are deploying weapons all over their borders. It is now confirmed that the Soros crowd has been trying to destabilize and have hack attacks and things in Russia during that election. And again, it's not that Putin and Medvedev are good either. It's different groups of mafias and global gangster systems. It's just that we're run by the most powerful mafia, the big mega banks, who are waging war against the free market, the Second Amendment, the family. The whole Homeland Security grid is for us. They finance the Muslim extremists. They finance al-Qaeda. They protect them, along with Saudi Arabia. And now it's all admitted. Underwear bomber, U.S. government got him on the plane. Shoe bomber, got him on the plane. Major Hassan, protected, run by Alaki, the known CIA operative who they staged his killing, totally phony. Al-Qaeda given Libya, Al-Qaeda sent into Syria, Al-Qaeda used against the Serbs, Al-Qaeda used against the Russians. It's all basically admitted now. And for anybody that even tries to study this, it's just all right there. More than you could ever even learn is there, hidden in absolute and total plain view. And I tell you, I have been so busy working on all this information that it's just overwhelming. And everything's coming to a head. Everything's accelerating. Everything's building up to a quickening right now. Now, we're going to go to break. And when we come back, I'm going to cover the two top stories at Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com that I need all of you, like never before, to get out to your whole email list and everyone you know, and to all the big news sites and all the radio shows, because we've got to force this out into being a national story, and we've got to do it right now. Here are the headlines. We'll cover it when we come back. Detention camp order follows preparation for civil unrest. KBR seeks subcontractors to outfit emergency environment centers. They've already built the camps. Now they're trying to man them. Do you know what that means? Here's another headline, Infowars.com. Exclusive, government activating FEMA camps across the United States. Kurt Nimmo and Alex Jones. We'll be right back breaking this down.
When the food collapse happened.
All right, my friends, thank you for joining us. Let me get into our top story right now. And then we've got the Austin Police Chief, Art Acevedo, joining us in studio in the third hour. That should be interesting and informative. I'm told he's a little angry with me. He told my crew that when he saw him downtown a few months ago. And so this should be somewhat informative and also entertaining in a way. So Art Acevedo is going to come in here and give me a verbal lashing, I'm told. I guess he was listening when I called him a communist Cuban. My point is he claims he's an anti-communist. And then he is our police chief, grew up in Cuba as a little kid, and then has checkpoints with blood draws at them and face scanning and license plate reading cameras. I mean, communism, fascism, whatever you want to call it, authoritarianism. All right, I'm digressing. Art Acevedo coming up. And then we've also got joining us Webster Tarpley, historian, to really break down 70 years later what really happened at Pearl Harbor. But we have our top story. And I'm going to break this down right now. I'm going to break down what we're facing and why this is such a big deal. And the article that Kurt Nimmo and I put together yesterday afternoon details in a snapshot, in a 6-page article with video clips and links to government documents, exactly the type of camps they've built, where they are, and how they intend to roll them out to the public. And the admissions, the legislation, the congressional hearings. This is not theories. This is 100% proven. And they've had Glenn Beck come out a few years ago and for months say he was going to expose it and that it was real, and then come out and show straw men, train facility that isn't a FEMA camp. And a North Korean facility that people took photos of on the web off satellite and said was the camps in America. Classic straw man. That's like saying, Alex says elephants exist. Let's go see. And you go walk out the front door in, say, Chicago, Illinois, or Austin, Texas, and there's no elephants in a field, and you say, therefore, there are no elephants. That doesn't prove it, but that's what they do. They go, oh, look at this. They say this is a FEMA camp. Some lady in the mid-90s did. It's not. Okay, there's no FEMA camp program. Well, what about this legislation? What about the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act for forced inoculation and mass roundup? Public. What about NLE-09, the FEMA admitting they want to use troops from 15 countries to, quote, take on American terrorists? What about the New York Times with photo gallery showing Boy Scout Explorer Scouts in 2009 all over the country training to, quote, take on militias and disgruntled veterans and kill them? What about Obama and speeches about national security forces? What about all the see something, say something tattletale garbage and telescreens going in grocery stores and Walmarts? What about TSA and the regular army now setting up checkpoints all over the country? What about Congress passing a law they can get rid of posse comitatus and have the military anywhere on the streets of America, talk about federal power grab, and have them pull triggers on American citizens and arrest citizens and never charge you? And then Stars and Stripes writes an article about Brigade Homeland and has a colonel quoted in there saying, yes, it'll be new for us pulling triggers on Americans. Or ABC News during Katrina gun confiscation. The Army captain, the reporter, says, what's it like? He goes, well, you pull a trigger and kill an American. It's not fun, but we go door to door and we take the guns. They cuts to the police chief saying, all the guns will be taken. No one will be allowed to be armed. Or the clergy response team newscast where they admit churches all over the country have been secretly hired by Homeland Security to tell their flocks to go to FEMA camps when the time comes and take the injections. Of course, we broke that 3 years before it was on the news. People didn't believe the documents. It was, oh, they wouldn't train preachers. 10,000 plus churches. That was the first wave. Now it's hundreds of thousands. They've gone to even the small ones, training them to spy on their flocks. It's right out of Red Dawn. When the Soviets occupy, that's what they do. You cannot make up the magnitude of this. Now, we're going to break. Long segment coming up. I'm just going to read the article that Kurt and I did, Ann Watson's article, and you need to get this out to everybody. I know people are tuning in right now en masse. We're going to come back and give you the full report. Exclusive. Government activating FEMA camps across the United States. Now, they expanded them and publicly built more under a Kellogg, Brown Root, Halliburton contract, Wall Street Journal, Houston Chronicle, 2006. And that's all linked in here. When we showed the articles last on the Nightly News. Now they are going forward in every state to activate them with contractors running them. Stay with us. We'll be back.
We're on the mark.
Okay, I'm going to boil this down real simply and then read these articles and give you even more backstory to give you full spectrum analysis and breakdown on what we're facing. Criminal corporate financial oligarchs made major inroads by financing J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, and others in the 1860s and forward. The robber barons then controlled the Western expansion. They set up monopolies, and ever since then put out public reports that we've covered and posted and had historians on about, breaking down the fact that they wanted to overthrow our Republican form of government, our constitutional republic. This is historical fact. They didn't even try to hide it. They financed eugenics, which meant survival of the fittest. They believed it was their right to rule, dominate, kill whoever they want. If they can do it, that gives them the right. Might makes right. They already believed they were gods. They were financed by the Rothschilds and the British royalty and Dutch royalty. That's the main power centers of the Western system. The Vatican plays into that to a certain extent, especially more in modern times. But that main power structure and that system of governance came out of England. The concentration camp was invented on the Native Americans, picked up by the British after that. Now, they have gone for global financial domination by building giant bubbles of currency and derivatives garbage that is backed up by the U.S. military and U.S. taxpayers They got the whole world to buy into it. And now they're saying, go along with what we say or we'll totally implode the world economy overnight. They've said it publicly in every country. The U.S. in 2008, right through Iceland, right through Greenland, right through Ireland, right through Greece, now into Spain, into Portugal. Portugal's raiding private pension funds. They're now taking private pension funds, bringing them into government control, and taking a large portion of it and calling it government protection of the funds. That's in Der Spiegel and Associated Press last night. And it's the same banks. When you hear about European banks, that's U.S. banks. That's globalist banks. That's the 6 big mega banks that we're dealing with. Now, they've committed this takeover. On the way up, when the bubble was expanding, they bought up the planet, paid people off. Now they're holding the planet hostage, saying, give us unlimited trillions. They call them bailouts. The media then turns it around and acts like the public owes this money. But they're really not even bailouts. It's lies within lies. It is direct global taxes to the 6 mega banks through their international consortiums of the IMF and World Bank and the U.S. arm, the Federal Reserve. The World Bank is more of the U.S. arm internationally of the Federal Reserve, but it's all interconnected. The IMF is mainly European and international as you go to the East. This is all Trilateral Commission breakdown information. It's all public. The stuff, they think you're stupid. They think you don't care. They hide it in plain view for anybody that cares. Their architecture, their battle plans are all there because they think so little of you. Because they know you're designed to face a foreign enemy who wears a uniform and comes at you with a rifle and a bayonet, not someone that comes at you in business suits. Okay, so we're continuing with economic hitmen before I get into this huge FEMA camp news. You have to understand why it's happening. They are now admitting that the private banks have dominated Europe through fraud. Our media, bought and paid for by them, hails it as cutesy. They sit there and giggle about it on Bloomberg, TV and radio. They giggle about it on CNBC. Oh, how it's undemocratic. How Europe will never be able to vote its way out of this now. Getting rid of all of their sovereignty. How the euro was only the receivership arm. Now they're going to implode that scaffolding and bring it fully under banker control with value-added taxes, sales taxes, carbon taxes, family taxes. Total social control. Shutting off economies for social engineering. They want you dependent, period. Global plantation. Now, patriots discovered this in the 1950s and 60s, namely Joseph McCarthy, who was demonized and who did have problems like anybody, and they allowed him to persecute innocent people because that created a new form of censorship in the name of countering communism, which actually brought us into authoritarianism in the name of fighting another authoritarianism. It was a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution. But the minute he discovered, I'm getting chills right now. This has even been in the New York Times and Moscow Times now. The minute he discovered that the Pentagon was funding the Russians and that the Pentagon and Arm & Hammer and the Rothschilds and Rockefellers were running it all, so that Russia had a pretext to clamp down, and so we had a pretext to be clamped down on, but that it was all a huge Hegelian dialectic of full-spectrum dominance. The minute he said that, they destroyed him. In the hearings, they said, you're saying the Army's doing this. Now, in hindsight, they've declassified the GRU and KGB files 5 years ago. International headlines, McCarthy was right. It was all true. But again, it's cutesy. It's all very cutesy. But because of people warning the population and understanding it, and understanding that mega rich want socialism and communism and collectivism and communitarianism and agenda